Hi everyone, I know I look a bit scary at the moment. I'm not wearing any foundation because I wanted to demo the Face Atelier foundation and do a review on it. So I do look a bit scary. See, you can avert thine eyes, I should say. I feel a bit scary, so I'm just going to shake it up and I'm going to show you how I apply it. If you hear a chainsaw noise whilst I'm filming this, that's because there is some guy doing something with a chainsaw or a strimmer, or a hedge trimmer or something like that. So I'm literally just going to blend this with my fingers. I'm sorry I'm not looking directly into the camera, but I am kind of just using a mirror to apply this. But it's pretty much a foolproof foundation to apply. Oh, there we go. Delightful man outside. At least my neighbour is not being very loud. So I'm just blending this through with my fingers. It's really damn easy, actually. I'm just going to get a little bit more on my forehead. No idea why my neighbour's being so quiet today. Maybe she's dead or taken ill or something. Who knows? You don't actually need very much of this foundation, which is why I really like to apply it with my fingers. I used to use a brush, but then I figured out that a lot of product was actually getting wasted when it could be going on my skin and making me look much prettier in the future. Okay, so that is what a full face looks like. I'm just going to apply my concealer and powder and blusher so I don't feel quite so odd. So just bear with me. I'll give you a bit of idle conversation. How are you? You alright? Are you well? Yeah? I just got my delivery from MAC Venomous Villains, which I wasn't actually expecting to come at all. So I'd actually kind of I'd resigned myself to not be receiving it in my head, and I kind of was at peace with that, really. I stopped being bothered about the collection. I saw it in store yesterday and I realised that I didn't really care that much about it either. So when it arrived I was slightly disappointed because I was kind of hoping that I could go spend my money on Sugar Pill instead. But no, it did actually arrive. So just going to give myself a bit of a dust of powder. So if you didn't know what I'm even doing, I'm so sorry about the serial killer with the chainsaw in the background. I'm sure he's nice in person. And a bit of blush because I don't look normal without a bit of blush. Okay, I'm trying not to take up too much of your precious time in this review. I'll probably put way too much blush on and look absolutely terrifying for the rest of this video. Doing my best to blend it out really, really well. That is too much blush. Okay. Are we good? I think we're good. Okay, so this is the Face Atelier Ultra Foundation, and it is a brilliant foundation. If we're going to talk about packaging, first of all, this container has 30ml, this container also has 30ml. I love this packaging, that's all I can say. There is nothing unnecessary about it. This is just complete pomp and circumstance and yards of uselessness. And I like this because it's so compact and it fits really easily into a makeup bag. So there's that. If we're going to talk about the blurb of this foundation, one of the key marketing aspects is that it is essentially a silicone-based foundation, so you don't need a primer because the primer is already in it. Now I'm always game when someone tells me to skip a step. I don't really use primers because I've never found one that I actually enjoy. But if someone says they're gonna give me a silky feeling foundation which blends effortlessly into my skin and it's already got one step down in it, it's 2 in 1, I'm happy. Other things about this foundation, it is oil-free. I never usually get on with oil-free foundations, but I was surprised to find that this one actually really works for me. In my experience, other oil-free foundations like NARS Sheer Matte and Revlon Photo Ready have gone really, really badly for me, but this works really well. It's also cruelty-free, and it supposedly, or it claims to set without powder, which I'll come back to in a bit. In terms of texture, I'll give you a little view of what it does. See, it's fairly liquidy. And the weird thing is, it's a very, very glossy looking liquid, which I have to attribute to the silicone content. But it's a very glossy looking and feeling liquid, and it's kind of got the texture of melted chocolate. It's kind of luxuriously thick, silky and shiny, which is probably a bit of a pretentious way to describe it, but that's the only way I could think of, because the first time I saw it I thought it looked like skin coloured melted chocolate, which isn't really the most attractive thought. But the texture is very, very silky when you blend it into the skin, and this is the easiest foundation I've ever used, in that it doesn't matter what I do, I never get a streak. It never streaks, it never cakes, it just blends really softly and silkily into the skin, and when you blend it, you'll be aware of how nice and smooth it feels to blend into the skin. And it definitely doesn't have that matte look in the formula that other foundations can have. The coverage is medium and buildable, and it's so buildable. I mean, it's not going to cover all the imperfections in your skin, and indeed those with quite heavy acne scarring may not benefit the best from this foundation. If you've got, you know, average Joe kind of skin, you know, you get a few blemishes, maybe a couple of acne scars, this is going to be absolutely fine for you. But that said, it is very, very buildable, and it's the most buildable foundation I've ever come across. I didn't dare go past 2 layers building it up, but it did not cake, and it probably wouldn't cake for another layer. It really is a bit of a wonder how it doesn't cake. But the thing is, one of the marketing keys about this foundation is that it's said to float on top of the skin, and it really does feel like that, because it's so silky and so smooth that you can just blend endlessly over and over and it just won't cake. It just doesn't. The finish of this foundation is dewy. Now that's a phrase which really freaks me out, because dewiness is really not my thing. I have oily combination skin, and I really don't want to look like a disco ball by the end of the day. The dewiness with this foundation is more of a kind of healthy luminosity rather than, you know, out and out illuminators in the product, because I know some foundations do include kind of illuminating things such as Revlon Photo Ready. This is more of a kind of moisturised, healthy, inner glow kind of finish, which is very, very nice. However, I think that is more geared to normal and drier skin tones, whereas for oily skin tones, I would think that you would need to powder, which is where I come back to the point about that it claims to set without powder. It may well do, but for people with oily skin, it may really help you to set with a good mattifying powder. It does give you that kind of airbrushed, your skin but better look, which is really, really nice, and it's not mask-like at all. It's just really dewy, really natural, really fresh looking on the skin. The most important thing is wear, I think. I have oily combination skin. I'm so sorry about the chainsaw happy man out there. I have oily combination skin, and I get about 10 to 12 hours out of this. This is pretty much my go-to foundation for during the day at the moment, because it's so soft and so easy to apply, and it lasts a decent amount of time. Now I do set it, so if you do have oily combination skin and you didn't set it with a good powder, of which I use Kryolan, you may get less wear out of it. But obviously it doesn't look the same at the end of the day for me as it does at the beginning, but it doesn't take on that really shiny, kind of horrible aspect that I do get with some foundations such as Revlon Photo Ready, where it's just worn off your forehead and all you have is this kind of film of oil. It really doesn't make me that oily, and that's amazing. I've never had a foundation which is both oil-free, contains silicone, and is a dewy finish that doesn't make me oily, and this really doesn't. So it's pretty much a good holy grail day-to-day foundation for me. The shade variety is pretty good. Although they have only 8 shades available, you know, from light to dark and warm to cool, the good thing about this, which really sets it apart as a pro makeup brand as well, is that it has shade adjusters. You have a lightener called 0 minus, and I think you have a darkener called 0 plus, but I could be making that up. And there's also a shade called, I think, terracotta or something, which you can use to warm up the foundation. So you can lighten it, darken it and warm it up, which I think is pretty amazing, which definitely sets it apart from, say, a fashion house foundation, because it definitely is made with makeup artists and professionals in mind. So in that sense, I mean, you can't get the wrong shade. I have tried the 0 minus, the lightener, and it's very, very good. It's like a milky fluid, and you just pump a little bit in with your foundation, mix it around, and you'll get the perfect shade. So it's a good product. It does cost more, but you need so little of this foundation that it will last you quite a long time. For application, as I've said, I use my fingers. I'm one of those people that's a firm believer in using your fingers to warm up product. So this in particular, because you don't need much of it, I found myself using a lot more product when I was using a brush, because the product would just sink down into the bristles and be lost forever. So I really like to use my fingers because I feel like I'm getting more of the product on my face than in the brush. That said, I did use the Sigma flat top synthetic kabuki, which you should probably try saying when you're drunk. And I really liked it with that. I didn't get any streaking, it was just easy, very, very quick, but I do prefer to use my fingers for application. I think that this foundation would be really good for people with dry to normal skin. I don't find it grabs to my dryness. I think it's because of the silicone. It makes it less caking, so it really doesn't cake around any dry spots on my face. It really does work for all skin types though. I mean, it really works for mine. I had 2 sample pots of this and then snapped and ordered a bottle of it, and I have not looked back. I absolutely love it, and basically I've not touched any of my other foundations apart from Pro Longwear when I've used this, when I got this. So I definitely have 2 perfect foundations in my stable now. But what I will say is that they do have some products to accompany this. They do have a camouflage palette, you know, concealer, and they do have a powder, and they also have some highlighters and some shade adjusters. So I can't really speak for them because I've not tried them, but they do have products which are formulated to work in tandem with this foundation. The price is £32, as I remember. It could be something else. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it around here somewhere, which is expensive. And I'm not even gonna mince my words. It is expensive. It's an expensive foundation, but it's worth it. I would say that it's actually more worth it than Makeup Forever HD. I love Makeup Forever HD, and this is an HD foundation in another league. It's just so much better. It's so much creamier. It never feels chalky, and it never gets cakey. It's so beautiful to blend into your skin. It's so silky and lovely, and you will absolutely love it. I promise you that. Well, I love it anyway. But you can order a sample, so even if you didn't like it, you can order a sample from the Cocoa site for £1, which is pretty reasonable, I think. Especially because when I went to get this Dior foundation, I asked for a sample for, you know, I wanted to know if the colour I was getting was a colour match for me, and she goes, "Oh no dear, we don't hand out samples." So it's nice to actually be offered the chance to have a sample. So in conclusion, oh, there's one thing I forgot to mention. It does have no sunscreen, so you will have to use your own sunscreen under this, but it is an HD foundation and is perfect for flash photography. I've taken quite a few photos of this, and I've got some on my blog, but they're not the best. But I have taken a few photos today, and it does photograph really, really nicely. So that's the point, that it, oh, my neighbour is so delightful. The point is that it is HD, so there is no sunscreen. So in conclusion, to wrap this up, because my neighbour is an absolute arse, this foundation is absolutely beautiful, so silky and lovely to blend, and it gives you a dewy finish which will last probably between 10 and 12 hours. I'd recommend it for all skin types, but in particular normal, but definitely it's pretty much like the Lazy Boy recliner foundation to me, because it has 2 steps in one and is absolutely lovely. It's just so lovely. So if you get to try a sample, then do give it a go. If you've got any questions, feel free to post them below and I'll try and answer them as thoroughly as I can. So hopefully you enjoyed this review and demo, and hopefully I don't look too mad. I will probably go and scream at my neighbour in about 2 seconds, so